हे एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय चैनल फीलियर जितेश। मैं आज आप लोगों के लिए पॉलिटी के लेक्चर्स बहुत ही एक फेमस कोचिंग के अपलोड कर रहा हूँ। प्लीज़ कोई स्ट्राइक कोई कंप्लेन मत कीजिएगा, ये सिर्फ उन लोगों के लिए हैं जो अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते हैं। मैं पहले ही माफ़ी मांग रहा हूँ, बाद में आप लोग ये मत कहिएगा कि आप चोरी कर रहे हो, ऐसा कर रहे हो, वैसा करो। देखिए, मेरे को भी कहीं से मिले तो मुझे लगा कि उन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए डाल दिए जाएँ, जो अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते। मैं भी उनमें से ही हूँ एक। मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप लोग इसका भरपूर इस्तेमाल करें, अच्छे से पढ़ें। दीज आर दी बेस्ट लेक्चर्स एंड मैं भी इससे पढ़ रहा हूँ, आप लोग भी इससे पढ़ो। एंड कोशिश करूँगा जल्द से जल्द सारे लेक्चर्स डाल दूँ। तो प्लीज़ अच्छे से पढ़िए। अब सही समय है सही से तैयारी करने का, तो अच्छे से तैयारी करिए। चलिए, आई होप यू विल लव दी लेक्चर्स। प्लीज़ लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल।
What all of you are in this batch. सर कल कहाँ ख़त्म किया था हमने? Where did we started discussing Article 32. Okay, 32 क्या है बताओ? Remedies means इलाज. If your constitutional provisions or constitutional rights have been violated by any agency, whether that be executive or legislature or whosoever, then you can approach the judiciary itself. ठीक है सर? Now, let me tell you one more thing, because somebody came to me with an answer. When you have been asked that give your views regarding something, then do not write this. I think employment, children below the age of 14 cannot be employed. ये कल आपने पढ़ा. The same news has come in newspaper. You should have read that and related that with this. ठीक है ना? अब यही चीज़ वो आपसे पूछ लेगा क्वेश्चन में. In exam, you will be shocked. यार, I studied everything. I just left this and this only came. This only came not because you left it. This came because this was in news. Understanding, sir? Next. Article 32 confers the power on Supreme Court to issue appropriate writs to enforce fundamental rights if violated. It allows the individual to directly approach, सीधा, the Supreme Court in this case. Therefore, which is the most basic fundamental right? I mean, without this, it will have no other fundamental right will have. And which most basic to Article 21 हो गया, because it has given to largest number of interpretations, and moreover every right aims at giving you a good quality life. Which fundamental right is seen as a teeth of part 3? 32. Teeth means something actionable which converts thought into reality. बट तीत से तो शिकार करोगे, अदरवाइज व्हाट इज द बेनिफिट ऑफ यू बीइंग अ लायन जब तक दांत नहीं होंगे. दोज टीथ विच कैन एक्चुअली मेक फंडामेंटल राइट्स वर्केबल आर प्रोवाइडेड अंडर आर्टिकल 32. ओके, राइट डाउन. Therefore it is Article 32. Therefore it is Article 32 which makes all other fundamental rights real and enforceable. Thus providing teeth to all other fundamental rights. Thus providing teeth to all other fundamental rights to bite. Therefore, Dr. Ambedkar called Article 32 heart, soul or both? both लिख दो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Heart and soul. Heart इसलिए because when heart stops, the person will fall. Similarly, Article 32, if it is not there, No other fundamental right has a meaning. है कि नहीं है? Therefore, Dr. Ambedkar called, लिखो, Article 32 as heart and soul. They might ask you which article is heart and soul of the Constitution. पूछ सकते हैं आपसे. Heart and soul of the whole Constitution. From which country we have taken this concept of writ jurisdiction? USA or Britain? Actually, king used to issue writs in earlier times. ठीक है ना? If, for example, somebody's rights were abolished, then he would give directions, help him. Or this kind of arrangement where directions are given by a judicial body to other executive bodies. This concept has been taken in writs from UK only. वहाँ का राजा writs issue करता था, हम भी करते हैं. Okay, right now. The concept of writ jurisdiction has been taken from England, seen under Article 32, Article 32, that is writ jurisdiction, W-R-I-T, writ jurisdiction means power, writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court, and 226, that is writ jurisdiction of High Court. When I say that there is concept called as writ jurisdiction in Constitution, means this is giving rise to what? Judicial review. बहुत बढ़िया. See, are these two powers not giving rise to judicial review concept? ये है ही. He was caught by police for no reason, exploited for no reason and detained. ठीक है ना? His fundamental right got violated. Somehow somebody complained. Then judiciary will see whether he was arrested on for right reasons or wrong reasons and accordingly issue orders in the form of writ. तो ये क्या हो गया? When Supreme Court issue writ to get him released, is it not a judicial review? ये judicial review ही तो है. In this case, judiciary reviewed the action of what? Executive. और यही judicial review है. Okay, right now. Writ jurisdiction implicitly confers the power of judicial review to Supreme Court and High Courts. Supreme Court has further expanded the scope of writ jurisdiction by incorporating the concept of dash in a writ. बहुत बढ़िया सर. बेसिक, कुछ भी बेसिक मत बोलो. PIL. Very good answer, sir. See, public interest litigation, you know that concept or not? By public interest litigation तो आपको पता है ना? In PIL, if your rights, all of your rights, this is a group or not? ये class एक group है. I feel that somehow you people are suffering or your fundamental rights are being violated by some other party and you are not able to go to court. आप court नहीं जा सकते हो. On your behalf, I will take up your cause. Provided I am not a party to your cause, I will take up your cause and give a application to Supreme Court that, sir, the rights of these people is getting violated. So Supreme Court then, in response to my application, which is called as public interest litigation, will issue an order, and then when this issue of order will executed, your rights will be restored. For example, all of you are living in a village of Kerala, okay, and somehow there is a chemical factory which is releasing some effluences in river around which you are living. Those effluences are bringing an impact on your health in such a way that not only you are suffering, your future generations are also getting genetically modified. Mentally retarded children, physically retarded children, okay. I am a social activist. I saw that happening. I filed a complaint to Supreme Court. Sir, the fundamental rights of these people is being violated, and moreover, you are not in a position to go to Supreme Court because of your illiteracy, because of your poverty and lack of awareness. In fact, you told the company, sir, please take care of the effluences or the toxic waste which you are releasing in the river. Company ignored. और आप कुछ कर नहीं पा रहे because police is in nexus with the company. So I, on your behalf, filed a complaint, and judiciary ordered the closure of the company instantly. तो वो क्या था? When I filed the complaint, that was public interest litigation. Litigation मतलब a kind of application whereby I want justice. Public interest में जो litigation की जाए, that is called as public interest litigation, and this was not mentioned in the constitution. It was invented by Supreme Court itself. Write down. Supreme Court, High Courts have the power to issue writs. You know this. Is there any other body also which can issue writ? नहीं, writs. CAT. Cannot CAT issue writs? Central Administrative Tribunal. CAT is a semi-judicial body which actually deals with the issue of service issues of central employees. ठीक है ना? Now this actually happened. I told you yesterday also. In one cases which I saw very closely, the person was denied a hall ticket for the prelims. He went to High Court. High Court said it's better CAT deals with it because somehow it relates with service matter. तो उन्होंने उस केस को कहाँ ट्रांसफर कर दिया? सर्विस मैट कैट के अंदर. एंड कैट issued a writ to UPSC. Please issue the admit card to this particular candidate because his stance in this case is genuine. Or admit card issue हुआ because the writ was issued not by Supreme High Court, it was issued by CAT. और ये power to issue writ is given to CAT not by Constitution, given by Parliament. By Supreme Court, High Court got the power to issue writ, and that power came from Constitution. मगर other bodies who can issue writs like Central Administrative Tribunal, State Administrative Tribunal, Joint Administrative Tribunals, they can also issue writs, but this power has been given to them by Parliament. देखो वो क्वेश्चन बना देगा इस तरह से. Then this answer can be taken as wrong by UPSC. देखो, understand this concept. Why I am saying this can be इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ because sometimes UPSC is quite subjective in terms of seeing the answer to a question. The same answer can be seen as right also if you see that way. Because if even Parliament is giving this power to CAT and JAT and SAT, that power is also coming from Constitution only. तो कहने को तो ये भी सही हो सकता है, but UPSC can say no to this answer because this power in this case is coming from Parliament. तो अगर यहाँ Parliament होता, that would have been right answer. क्योंकि nowhere Constitution said give the power to CAT. Constitution just gave an open direction. that you can issue this power to any body which you want apart from Supreme Court and High Court. तो उन्होंने CAT SAT को दे दिया. And in this question the mention is exactly of CAT SAT and JAT. तो वहां पे क्या आंसर आना चाहिए? Parliament. Because specifically to these bodies Parliament gave the power. Constitution did not give the specific power to CAT SAT JAT का तो नाम मेंशन ही नहीं किया उन्होंने. उन्होंने पार्लियामेंट को दे दी, भाई दे दो जिसको देनी है पावर. ओके, राइट डाउन. ये अप्रोच लगानी है प्री में. दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट टू टेल यू. आई एम नॉट गिविंग यू इंफॉर्मेशन, आई एम टेलिंग यू हाउ टू अप्रोच द क्वेश्चंस. राइट डाउन. अंडर आर्टिकल 32 clause 3, under article 32 clause 3, the parliament has the power to confer, Parliament has the power to confer writ jurisdiction by means of law on any other body, brackets, apart from Supreme Court and High Court, apart from Supreme Court and High Court. Using this power, the Parliament enacted Administrative Tribunals Act, (1985), which conferred the writ jurisdiction on CAT. CAT means Central Administrative Tribunal. On SAT, State Administrative Tribunals. SAT, what is the function of SAT? I'll discuss them separately also. SAT means if you are an employee of state government and you have a service matter, then you can go to SAT. कि state government is not dealing right with, पता चला उन्होंने आपको suspend कर दिया, state government suspended you or they dismissed you or an allegation is over you, then you can move to SAT to get justice. ठीक है ना? SAT, State Administrative Tribunal, and JAT, Joint Administrative Tribunal. JAT नहीं है, JAT. Okay. Types of writs which Supreme Court and High Court can issue under Article 32 and 226. There are number of other writs also, but then we are mentioning only 5 which are mentioned in 32 and 226. Habeas corpus. What is habeas corpus? To have the body. Corpus का मतलब क्या है? Body. Body को लाओ. ठीक है? Live body, of course. देखो ये क्या है? Generally this is used very much in the areas which are infested by Naxalism or terrorism. For example, executive body like police, they have detained somebody. I'll discuss that on Monday again, in which case this was used. Okay. In that case, Supreme Court can give direction to police, bring the body in front of me. Abhi lao. Either I will release him or I will ensure that he is given due justice. ठीक है sir? Write down. Habeas corpus means to have the body. Keep reading what you're writing. When an individual is detained without legal justification, then this writ of habeas corpus, written on the board, is issued by the court to set him free. What is the principle of locus standi? Hmm. Locus standi. Very good. See, in Hindi, locus standi means that any individual has the power to approach the court to get justice by himself. If I want justice, I can go to the court. Locus standi. मुझे खुद जाना पड़ेगा justice लेने के लिए. Okay? It cannot happen that I am suffering and he on my behalf without my consent he goes to Supreme Court, sir, provide him justice. No, I have to go, and if only I am unable, then he can go, provided I am not against that. Locus standi means I must go to just the court to get justice. मुझे खुद जाना पड़ेगा justice लेने के लिए कोर्ट के पास. Getting this? Right now. नहीं, सुनो मेरी बात. Writ jurisdiction of habeas corpus. You know habeas corpus very well. You tell me, will principle of locus standi apply here? हाँ जी, बताओ सर, प्रिंसिपल ऑफ लोकस स्टैंडी लगेगा यहाँ पे हैबिस कॉर्पस में? नो. अरे आई एम डिटेन्ड बाय पुलिस, हाउ कैन आई माई सेल्फ गो टू जज एंड आस्क फॉर जस्टिस? सर मुझे छुड़ा दो. नो, somebody else on my behalf will go and tell the judge, sir, he has been detained wrongly, get him released. Means in case of habeas corpus, writ locus standi principle will not apply. The person himself may not go to the judge to get justice. कोई और उसके भी हाथ पे चला जाएगा. ओके, राइट नाउ दिस रिट कैन बी फाइल्ड बिफोर कोर्ट. रिट इज ऑल्सो इश्यूड एंड रिट इज ऑल्सो फाइल्ड. ठीक है ना? दिस रिट कैन बी फाइल्ड बिफोर कोर्ट बाय एन इंडिविजुअल or organization and not necessarily by the aggrieved person, not necessarily by the aggrieved person. Therefore the principle of locus standi does not apply. Can habeas corpus be issued against private individual? Hanji, what do you feel? Yes, yes. अरे ठाकुर साहब ने अगर हमें पकड़ के बिठा लिया and he is not releasing us, then court will get us released through habeas corpus. पुलिस को डायरेक्शन देंगे, get him free. Okay, write down. The writ can be issued not only against state functionaries. The writ can be issued not only, ये देखो, in fighting which social injustice habeas corpus can be of great use. Bonded labor बोलो सर, चाहे चाइल्ड हो या विमेन हो, बॉन्डेड लेबर है कि नहीं है? राइट डाउन. द रिट कैन बी इशूड नॉट ओनली अगेंस्ट द स्टेट फंक्शनरीज बट ऑल्सो अगेंस्ट और ऑल्सो टू प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल्स और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. इसको भी लिख लो. यू राइट दिस ऑल्सो. Principle of locus standi, because then you will forget. Principle of locus standi means right of a person, उसका हक, right of a person to go to court, to get his rights implemented. फर्स्ट वॉज हेबिस कॉर्पस, द सेकेंड रिट इज मैंडेमस. हाँ जी सर बताओ, व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ मैंडेमस? पहली टाइप की रिट होती है ऑर्डर विच इज कॉल्ड एज हेबिस कॉर्पस. कोर्ट इज इशूइंग टेलिंग समबडी रिलीज हिम, वो खत्म. सेकेंड रिट इज मैंडेमस. व्हाट इज मैंडेमस? सॉरी, मैंडेमस लिख दिया. मैंडेमस, मैंड मीन्स कमांड. In this writ, just listen to this. In this writ, according to this writ, Supreme Court or High Court, they can issue a direction to a public functionary. You do this or do not do this. Example, अभी बताया था मैंने आपको. For example, that UPSC was directed by High Court in the case of one person that give him his admit card. तो ये क्या थी? It was kind of mandamus. ये काम करो. Can we also say ये काम मत करो? Yes. Under mandamus, the court can say a public functionary do this or do not do this. Okay? So that somebody's fundamental rights are not violated. Okay? Mandamus literally means to command. This writ is issued by the judiciary. This writ is issued by the judiciary in a nature of command, against a public authority or a person holding public office. To do or not to do certain acts. To do or not to do certain acts. पड़ोसी की भी मदद लो यार. इन्होंने भी नहीं लिखा. Writ of mandamus can be issued by the judiciary against a public authority or somebody holding a public office to do or not to do certain acts. एक बात बताओ, ये है सर, ये और ये भी है. Must have gone to both the places and denied admission also. आप अंदर आने अलाउड नहीं हो. Will you file a case or a writ of mandamus in the cases? Why I wrote this? Because this happens very usually in these places. आप अंदर जाना चाहते थे, but you were not given admission here. You wanted to take admission in a coaching, you were denied. आपको नहीं देंगे सर. I saw you there also. Your behavior is not appropriate. उन्होंने आपको एडमिशन देने से मना कर दिया. Is it not a kind of violation of your fundamental right? भाई आपका fundamental right to get education. You went to a coaching center, they denied. ठीक है ना? You were going here also. You said, oh, I'll die if I don't eat now. मना कर दिया उन्होंने आपको. Right of admission reserved. Can Supreme Court issue writ in this case also? Why not? State नहीं है. Very good. और ये आपका पब्लिक राइट भी नहीं है. दिस इज योर प्राइवेट राइट. है कि नहीं है भाई? टू एंटर इनटू अ प्राइवेट प्लेस इज योर प्राइवेट राइट और नॉट? बट टू एंटर इनटू अ पब्लिक प्लेस इज पब्लिक राइट. वो सबको मिला हुआ है विदाउट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन. Whereas this right is not given to everyone. Don't you keep listening to these things that somebody was denied admission into a bar just because he or she was not wearing western clothes? ये खबर बहुत आम है. Yes. It was in news in South India. One prominent person, just because he was wearing South Indian dress, he was denied admission into a club. And he took up this case. And court did not give direction of mandamus because when he was trying to enter inside a private property, of course that was for public use, that was not his public right, that was his private right. To restore private rights, mandamus cannot be issued. To restore public right, mandamus can be issued. ठीक है ना? जैसे कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू आर फ्रॉम अ बैकवर्ड कम्युनिटी, एग्जाम्पल यू वॉन्ट टू वॉक ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर रोड, दैट रोड हैज बीन ब्लॉक्ड बाई पीपल फ्रॉम अपर कास्ट, उन्होंने रोक दिया है, देन यू विल गो टू कोर्ट, sir my right of movement has been blocked. In that case judiciary will issue this mandamus to whom? Police. Go and ensure that he is allowed to walk on the road. ये क्या हुआ? Mandamus. Police got a command from court, allow him or ensure that he walks on that road, remove the barricades. ठीक है ना? Right now mandamus can be issued to implement a public or a legal right, but not a private right. Prohibition. What is prohibition? To stop somebody. When will Supreme Court or High Court or any other court which has this power issue this writ of prohibition? Anybody? Not only High Court, any body which is judicial functionary. देखो, if we see the district courts, they are divided at different levels. For example, one level judge cannot take into hand a murder case, because that murder case can attract life imprisonment, so that can be taken up by his senior judge. ठीक है ना? और I give you one more example. इसको लो पहले, quasi judicial body, NGT, you know or not? National Green Tribunal. ट्रिब्यूनल का काम क्या होता है? ट्रिब्यूनल वर्क इज टू गिव यू जस्टिस इन अ पर्टिकुलर एरिया ऑफ एक्टिविटी. जैसे इन एरिया ऑफ एनवायरमेंट, इफ यू फील दैट सम ऑफ योर राइट्स हैव बीन वायलेटेड, यू कैन गो टू हुम? एनजीटी, नेशनल ग्रीन ट्रिब्यूनल के पास आप जा सकते हो. ठीक है? यू वेंट ऑल्सो टू एनजीटी. एनजीटी सेड यू बैन ऑल द डीजल व्हीकल्स विच आर ओल्डर देन 10 years old. ये एनजीटी ने ऑर्डर दे दिया था. ठीक है? एंड दिस ऑर्डर was contested by Ministry of Environment. उन्होंने पता क्यों contest किया था? They said NGT, which is a quasi-judicial body, has issued an order which is not within its purview of powers. ये उसकी power है ही नहीं ये order issue करने की. If NGT says that cars which are older than 15 years or 10 years are to be banned, the ministry said this order cannot be issued by NGT because this is not within the powers of NGT, because these issues of banning something, banning a vehicle, comes under Motor Vehicle Act. And when NGT was formed, nowhere the mandate of NGT required it to deal with Motor Vehicle Act. So NGT, when it is passing an order, it is crossing its limits. Okay? They went to court also, that court should prevent the quasi-judicial body or a judicial body to give this kind of an order which is beyond its powers. Understood or not? इसे कहते हैं prohibition. और वो रोक देगा उसको, that see, do not give judgment in this case, this is beyond your powers. Right now, prohibition is the writ is issued only against, remember this thing, it is not issued against executive bodies, it is issued only against judicial and quasi-judicial bodies, to ensure that these bodies remain within its limits. These bodies, what will Supreme Court say to NGT? सुप्रीम कोर्ट क्या बोलेगा एनजीटी को? सुप्रीम कोर्ट विल प्रिवेंट एनजीटी फ्रॉम एंटरटेनिंग दिस केस दैट डीजल व्हीकल शुड बी बैंड. भाई आई एम एनजीटी, लिसन वेरी केयरफुली, आई एम एनजीटी, लिख बाद में लेना, वीडियो भी है, फोकस हियर. आई एम एनजीटी, she filed a complaint to me that sir please ban these diesel vehicles, they are polluting the environment so much. ठीक है ना? Now Supreme Court is watching me. ठीक है ना? Supreme Court can issue this order that you do not move ahead, move forward in this case because this case is beyond your powers. अभी judgment आई नहीं है, I am just proceeding with this case. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट बीच में मुझे रोक देगा. ये आपकी किससे बाहर है? ज्यूरिसडिक्शन से बाहर है. ठीक है, इसे कहते हैं प्रोहिबिशन, रोक देना. एंड दिस इज यूज्ड ओनली एंड ओनली अगेंस्ट जुडिशियल एंड क्वासी जुडिशियल बॉडीज. राइट नाउ these bodies remain within their limits of jurisdiction. If such a body takes a case in access, can Supreme Court stop High Court also using this prohibition? Yes. But High Court also has a power or not? For example, if a issue deals with a substantial interpretation of Constitution, then in that case, Supreme Court might stop High Court that this case which requires a significant interpretation of the Constitution and which will have bearing on center as well as state, you better give it to me. This is beyond your purview to deal with. तो वहां वो क्या करेगा? Prohibition issue करेगा and that will stop High Court from moving ahead with the case, or that will be later on transferred to Supreme Court itself. Okay, right now. If such a body takes up a case in excess of its powers, the writ of prohibition is issued. Writ of prohibition is issued which prohibits them to proceed with the case. Fourth, certiorari. Certiorari. हाँ जी, certiorari is not certification. Certiorari is quash the judgment. अभी देखो, NGT example I gave you or not? Listen here. NGT example I gave you. Now NGT was stopped from moving ahead with the case. That was prohibition. The judgment had not come. तब बीच में रोक दिया था सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उनको. But then suppose NGT delivered a judgment. Judgment was delivered that the vehicles which are older than 15 years of age should be banned or blocked. In that case, what will you do? Judgment has been delivered by a quasi judicial body. How will you prevent that? पहले आप उस जजमेंट को काटोगे. You will quash the judgment saying that this judgment was actually delivered by a body which was not actually having the power to give judgment in the case. तो वो तो judgment ही nullify है. Understand? And that can be done by issuing this order called as certiorari. Write down. Certiorari is similar to prohibition. Certiorari is similar to prohibition. अभी बताऊंगा ना. Is similar to prohibition except that it is issued to quash. Quash मतलब cancel करना. It is issued to quash a judgment, direction or order issued by a judicial or a quasi judicial body judicial or quasi judicial body in excess of their jurisdiction, in excess of their jurisdiction. And the fifth one is quo warranto. What is the meaning, sir, quo warranto ka? क्यों वारंट का मतलब है आप होते कौन हो यहां बैठने वाले, ठीक है? बरसात में होता है कभी कभी. क्यों वारंटो मतलब what is your authority, what is your qualification to sit in this office? For example, if he occupies the office of CAG मतलब Comptroller and Auditor General, and he is not qualified actually to occupy the post, then somebody will file a case against him that he is occupying an office to which he is not qualified enough. Then in that case, Supreme Court will issue, or High Court will issue, or CAT, SAT, JAT can issue quo warranto. Who are you to occupy this position? You are not qualified enough to occupy this position, or you are attracting some disqualification by which you cannot occupy this position, और आपको हटा दिया जाएगा वहां से. Understanding? वरना ऐसा होगा क्या? If for example I am in a power position, I will ensure that all my relatives they occupy the important public office. सबको बिठा दूंगा वहां पे, even if they are not qualified enough. At least somebody can prevent somebody from occupying a wrong office which is beyond their qualification through this quo warranto. Understood or not? You understood that? Write down. Quo warranto literally means what is your authority? The purpose of this writ is to ensure that a person holding public office, that a person holding a public office is qualified to hold that public office. हाँ जी, एक बात बताओ, आर्टिकल 32 इज व्हाट? रिट jurisdiction of Supreme Court. And Article 26 is writ jurisdiction of High Court. I put you a question with whatever knowledge you have till now. Sir, you tell me, which writ jurisdiction is bigger, is more powerful? Supreme Court or High Courts? The power to issue writ is more powerful with Supreme Court or with High Courts? Both नहीं यार, more पूछ रहा हूँ, more. High Court? Yes, High Court. Yes, excellent. See this thing. Supreme Court can issue writs under Article 32 only with respect to, if there is a violation of fundamental rights, then only Supreme Court can issue writs or order under Article 32. However, High Courts can issue writs or order to restore not only fundamental rights but also other legal rights. तो ये ज्यादा हुआ ना? Means High Court can deal with larger number of cases in which fundamental rights are also not violated. A simple ordinary right was violated. ठीक है ना? But then territorial jurisdiction of which writ is more? Supreme Court. Because Supreme Court will take up or can take up any case throughout India, whereas High Court will take up a case which is localized. Understanding or not? This is it. Now, what did you confer when I say that Supreme Court is dealing only with respect to fundamental rights regarding Article 32? इससे क्या कुछ मीनिंग निकल के आती है? Are we actually, देखो, this is the game of logic, and if you can answer this, it means you are actually on the path of right orientation, at least, if not passing the exam. I said the power of writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court is smaller than High Court with respect to fundamental right. Does it make Supreme Court powers diminished or actually more important? More important in respect to what? Responsibility. अरे उसको exclusively एक काम दे दिया गया है that you deal with only one thing, fundamental right, and you ensure that never ever nobody's fundamental right is violated. You have this constitutional obligation to prevent the violation of fundamental right. Whereas this constitutional obligation to prevent the violation of fundamental right is not on High Court. His work is to restore fundamental right, no problem. But High Court is not bound. High Court is not bound. जबरदस्ती नहीं है High Court के ऊपर to restore fundamental rights. High Court may entertain a plea where fundamental rights have been violated or may not. As I gave you example, for example, if somebody's admit card was not issued, he went to High Court. High Court said, you better go to CAT. High Court ने उनको CAT भेज दिया in violation of fundamental right. Had that fellow gone directly to Supreme Court would not have sent him to CAT. वो खुद justice देता उनको. Understood? Supreme Court cannot pass on its responsibility of preventing the violation of fundamental rights. Not High Court can also not pass on the responsibilities, but it can transfer that job to somebody else, and that body will also be bound to give judgment. ऐसा नहीं कि उसने उसको पास किया वो आगे पास कर देगा. No, write down. That person, yes, he could have gone directly to CAT also. But then if CAT was actually handling a case which was beyond the powers of CAT also, then Supreme Court would have prevented it, or High Court would have prevented it. Fundamental rights, जैसे कि because that might not be exclusively a case related to fundamental rights. There must be a grouping of rights, and one right must be fundamental right. There must be legal rights along with some fundamental rights. And fundamental right is not one of them.
Fundamental right is one of them. That is written in the article. But in cases, because the burden of Supreme Court is such that it cannot take all the cases. That's why it has said that in that judgment, as first exhaust the right in High Court, though it's not essential that it must go to High Court, it may directly come to Supreme Court. But to lower down the burden of the Supreme Court, it should first go to High Court.
But then if this thing is said by High Court, you are bound to go to that court. Then you cannot insist on High Court that, sir, you give me justice. But then you can insist on Supreme Court that since it is a violation of my High Court, you please review your order. ठीक है ना? Supreme Court cannot force you to go to some other court just because it is overburdened with cases. Fundamental right is sacrosanct. Right now. Make this table and give a comparison. इस table बना लो और comparison लिख लो fast. Supreme Court can issue the writs under Article 32 only for the enforcement of fundamental rights and not other legal rights. High courts under Article 226, High courts under Article 226 can issue writs not only for enforcement of FRs, but also for other legal rights. Next point. The Constitution places a duty. Constitution places a duty on Supreme Court to enforce a fundamental right if found violated. Therefore, Supreme Court has to means it is bound. Therefore, Supreme Court has to implement the fundamental rights if found violated. 226 में लिखो, write in other column, there is no constitutional duty. There is no constitutional duty on high courts. There is no constitutional duties on high courts to implement the fundamental rights if found violated. If found violated. Therefore, high courts may or may not, वो सुन भी सकता है, नहीं भी सुन सकता. High Court may or may not implement these rights. High Court may or may not implement these rights and may suggest alternative remedy. कुछ और रास्ता दिखा देगा. May suggest an alternative remedy in place of implementing that right. Last point, आखिरी point, writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court extends over. Writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court extends over whole of India. Writ jurisdiction of High Court under 226. Writ jurisdiction of High Court is limited by territorial jurisdiction. Change the paragraph and then write. Paragraph change करके लिखो. The writ jurisdiction, therefore the writ jurisdiction of High Court is a bit more than Supreme Court. Therefore the writ jurisdiction of High Court is a bit more than Supreme Court because Constitution deliberately means with intention. Constitution deliberately wanted Supreme Court to be the protector of fundamental rights. You know, initially high courts did not have this power to issue writs with respect to fundamental rights. तब तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं थी. समझ रहे हो सर? Initially high courts were not given any power that if fundamental rights are violated somebody can go to high court. It was given to a high court later on. Okay sir? And one last thing, and fundamental rights are over. एक आखिरी चीज है, just very small, and fundamental rights are over. Today I'll complete DPSP, and from Monday I'll take up a topic of governance. Very interesting and very essential, because last year question did not come from this. So this year question, and this year if it does not come, next year to certain hai. Role of civil services in democracy. Okay, I'll take up from Monday. It will continue for 3 days. Very interesting and easy also. ये क्या है फटाफट क्विक डिफरेंस बोलो सर सस्पेंशन ऑफ फंडामेंटल राइट्स आर्टिकल 358 व्हाट इज इट if emergency is declared on the grounds of war or external aggression. अगर emergency लग गई on the grounds of war or you know the difference between war and external aggression? External aggression means they have attacked us, but we have not declared it as a war. या तो हम उनको भगा देंगे तभी, okay, and that will be the end of it. But then if it escalates, we formally say, now we are, because Kargil war, it went on for some days. For some days, it was like an aggression. But later on, it was formally declared like a war. Right, sir? See, if emergency is there on the grounds of war with country or external aggression, or emergency lag gayi, then you feel that you have lost one right. Wo right to gaya, automatically. Which is that? Your right under Article 19. If emergency is in operation on these two grounds, your 6 freedoms. What is Article 19? 6 freedom hi to hai. Right to speech, right to movement, right to assemble. They are gone automatically. However, here, emergency, whether it is on the grounds of external aggression or war or armed rebellion. See, this thing, for the people who do not know what is emergency. Emergency can be imposed on basically 3 grounds. War, external aggression, or armed rebellion. Earlier, this armed rebellion thing was internal disturbance. Like Indira Gandhi, when she imposed emergency in India, she imposed on the grounds of internal disturbance. कि भैया disturbance बहुत है, emergency लगा दो. But then, why do you think that word internal disturbance has now been replaced by this word armed rebellion? Now you cannot put emergency on the grounds of internal disturbance. Now you can put emergency only when there is clear armed rebellion. What is the difference? जल्दी बताओ. Yes, disturbance is very arbitrary term. It is very subjective. For example, I may not feel that there is any disturbance in this class. Somebody might come and he say, oh, there is so much of disturbance, right? Now this is some kind of subjectivity which come in this word, internal disturbance. When she imposed emergency on the grounds of internal disturbance, nobody had a parameter to judge whether actually there is a kind of internal disturbance or not. तो हमने बोला भैया in future this word is removed and इसकी जगह पे क्या डाला हमने armed rebellion. If tomorrow there is a rebel in this country, armed rebellion, हथियार के साथ, then we can declare emergency. Okay, but then if this is the case, भाई ये तो सिर्फ आर्टिकल 19 था. I am state, I am dealing with an emergency situation. I have to suspend not only your article 19, I have to suspend your right to religion also. मुझे वो भी खत्म करना है आपका. So how can I do that? I can do so under Article 359. Article 359 empowers the state to suspend every right of people of this country except for 2 rights. State cannot suspend 2 rights in any condition. Article 20 and Article 21. What is Article 20, sir? What is Article 20? यार ऐसे ऐसे मत करो. नाउ यू शुड बी थॉरो विद द थिंग्स. 3 दिन हो गए. देखो अभी बताएंगे. हाँ जी बताओ. व्हाट इज आर्टिकल 20? हाउ कैन यू फॉरगेट दैट? इतना इंटरेस्टिंग एग्जाम्पल दिए थे आपको. एक्स पोस्ट फैक्टो, सेल्फ इंक्रिमिनेटिंग एविडेंस, double jeopardy. 20 and 21 will always remain, whether it is external emergency or internal emergency. बाकी सबको अगर सस्पेंड करना है, स्टेट कैन डू सो यूजिंग द पावर अंडर आर्टिकल 359. Fundamental rights can be suspended under these two articles if emergency is on the grounds of war or external aggression. Article 19, which is 6 freedoms, will automatically get cancelled. Magar, if the state wants that we want to suspend more rights of people to deal with this emergency, then they can make use of Article 359. Whereby they can suspend any of your right, whether it is a right to religion or right against exploitation or right against anything. Okay, right now. Article 358 says, when emergency is, Article 358 says, when emergency is external emergency due to war or external aggression, then fundamental rights under Article 19 automatically, consequently, automatically get suspended. 359 says, if emergency is internal or external, then the president, through a separate proclamation, means a separate order, can suspend one or more fundamental rights. One or more fundamental rights except rights under Article 20 and 21. Please double underline the word automatic. In Article 358 you have given a word automatic. Double underline kar lo, it has very huge meaning. Yes, of course. You cannot go to court also to get it enforced. That is also gone for that time. Yes, the rights are not in position, nor you can get it enforced in court. But how will you get the rights enforced? कैसे enforce कराओगे? By going to court under Article 32. Even that is taken away from you. Enforcement is also gone. This is what I mean to say. Yes, this is what I told. That there are a number of other writs also, but the constitution mentions about only these 5 writs under Article 32. Yes, it can ask Supreme Court to issue some writs to get some action done from executive. It can ask. Apart from those 5 writs, there are other writs also, and Parliament can ask them to issue them appropriately. DPSP. No, sir. Article 19 तो पहले ही जा चुका है ना. If it is, सुनो मेरी बात, if it is external emergency, then Article 19 तो वैसे ही चला गया था. Listen, अरे यार सुन, बोलने तो दो पहले. ये तुम बोलो पहले, चलो ठीक है. Because CUM declares that on this ground we are putting emergency. ऐसा नहीं है that emergency has been declared and you do not know even what on what grounds it is there. They will declare precisely on what grounds we are putting emergency. And when they will use the power, they will also cite that we are doing so under this and so, this an article 58 or 59 whatever. ठीक है? Now see, DPSP, everybody knows the full form. Directive. See, isko instead of telling you the technical things, let me take a very simple example and then you'll understand what is the meaning of DPSP. Sir, which part of the constitution is talking about DPSP? Part 4. When you came from UK to India to take up the coaching लेने आना आप सिविल सर्विसेज की, were something told to you by parents? बोला पेरेंट्स ने आपको कि भाई ये नहीं करना है वो करना है? These things were told you or not? बताओ सर, what was the list? अरे हंसो मत, जल्दी बताओ. Do not do this, do this, do not do this, do that. पूरी लिस्ट दी थी ना आपको. What was the purpose? क्यों इतना बड़ा भाषण देते हैं? And the list is also, in fact, you are again and again they recall you also on these things. What is the purpose of giving you such a big list? When you go out for a mission, भटके नहीं. बहुत बढ़िया. एक तो पर्पस ये था, the one purpose of giving such big guidelines is that he does not get deviated, and of course everybody वो भटक ना जाए. And there is one more purpose, achieve the goals. बहुत बढ़िया सर. And also achieves a particular aim. समझ रहे हो? When parents are supplying you with such a big list of guidelines that you do this, you do that, do not do this, do not go there, do go there, go where? Temple, for example, coaching, for example. ठीक है? ये सारी guidelines दो reasons से दी थी. One was you do not get deviated. भाई यहाँ तो you are alone, free. Chances of you getting deviated or not? And forgetting the promises which you have made to your parents. No, no, sir, it's only the beginning. Okay, the test will be after 3 months. Other thing is that you are also expected to achieve your aim, because unless you stick to these goals, aim will also not be achieved. For example, do study hard. ये बात है. Now you are not doing anything unethical or wrong. वो नहीं कर रहे हो, ठीक है? You are not going anywhere also. You are coming to coaching also. But then this is it. You are not studying after the classes. तो deviate तो नहीं होगे आप. But then you will also not achieve your aim. So there is a purpose of giving you these big number of guidelines so that you do not get deviated and you keep following a particular path and your conscience remain intact. Conscience समझते हो ना? Your zamir, your thinking pattern, your orientation, it remains non-diluted, uncorrupt. और वो रहती है thankfully to these guidelines. And therefore you give appreciation to these guidelines or not? These guidelines given to you by parents are appreciated highly by you, though they may not be enforceable also, always on against you. For example, on some day or for many days you did not study hard, nobody is coming to know back home. Moreover, if they also know, they will not be able to throw stick from there. वो तो दूर है. Enforcement नहीं हो पाएगी, कोई बात नहीं. But still, they serve big purpose or not? Moral pressure. Moral pressure is something which is sometimes even more bigger than physical pressure. Moral restraint रखते हैं ये हमारे ऊपर, ethics and integrity. But then DPSP, directive, this was something guidelines. Similar kind of guidelines were also given by constitution. जैसे parents ने आपको guidelines दी, the similar kind of guidelines were given also by constitution to whom? State. State को दी. And what is the definition of state? The same definition which was there in fundamental rights. By in fundamental rights, did I not tell you what is the meaning of state? Under which article? 12. Article 12 mein there was a definition of state. I discussed legislature of union, executive of union, legislature of state, executive of state, and any other public authority. वो any other public authority बहुत बड़ी वो हो जाती है. It's an open interpretation. Now, Constitution gave these directions or guidelines to the state. और state वही है जो fundamental right में था. This is the very same state which was there in fundamental right. Again, executive, legislature, so and so. Now, when they are performing and they are giving you some service, when executive, legislature, LIC, ONGC, oil, sale, local bodies, or any other body which is serving under the state for you, then they have to follow those guidelines, and at least they have to keep in mind that these are the guidelines given to us by the constitution, and when we perform our duty, we should perform these duties keeping in mind those guidelines. This is DPSP, Directive Principle of State Policies. Okay, now ek baat suno. You know this thing very well that these guidelines which are given by the constitution to the state are not enforceable in the court of law. Enforceable in the court of law का मतलब ये है, let's see. There was one guidelines given by constitution to the state that you please village panchayats. Constitution ने state को बोला, constitution told the state that please you form bodies at the local level, local government, which will be called as panchayat or municipalities. Okay. And this was told to them by the constitution in the very beginning. शुरू में ही DPSP आ गए थे, or were they added later on? Right from the beginning, DPSPs were there or not in the part of the constitution. So, constitution told the state from in the very beginning, you please organize village panchayat banao. But did state make village panchayats in 1950 itself? No. कब बनी थी ये? Village panchayats were there even before 1992, let me tell you, but they were not having constitutional status, and their existence was very much on the mercy of the state government. They could have dismissed them at any point of time. मतलब वो थी तो सही, but they were not having any legal backing. Safety नहीं थी उनकी. So in 1992, government gave them a constitutional status कि भाई from now on village panchayats will exist not at the mercy of state government, and they will be there by the virtue of constitution. Constitution की वजह से ही है यहाँ पे. But then state took so many years to do that. Means state did not work upon the fundamental DPSP in the very beginning. Could you go to court and put a case against state that state did not organize village panchayat in beginning itself? No. आप केस नहीं कर सकते थे स्टेट के ऊपर. One more example. Uniform Civil Code. Sir, बताओ, आप बताओ, what is Uniform Civil Code? This is coming in news again and again and again. Now, not knowing this is a sin. Common? Uniform Civil Code का मतलब है, I'll give you a note also on this today. Uniform Civil Code means that for all the religion, there should be a common law which will control the civil areas of or personal area of human activity like marriage, divorce, inheritance of property. ठीक है ना? Now, for right now, Muslims are having their own laws regarding this marriage, divorce and inheritance of property and all. Adoption भी. Hindus are having their own laws, hai ki nahi hai? And there is a disparity. And it is said that in few religions, these personal laws are so regressive that they bring exploitation, particularly to women. Unka exploitation ho raha hai. So let's end this and let's make a scientific law which will apply uniformly across all the religion. Uniform civil code. Marriage, adoption, inheritance of property and divorce. Let's have a common law. और वो सब पे अप्लाई होगा, whether it is Hindu or religion, Hindu or Muslims. ठीक है? This is one of the directive principle of state policy. Which article? 44. Thankfully. Are we having uniform civil code right now? अभी तक नहीं आया है. It's been about 70 years since we got independence and still we are yet to get a uniform civil code, which was a direction given to the state by constitution so many years ago. अभी तक उसको ये लोग अप्लाई नहीं कर पाए. Now can you go to court against the state? That state did not bring uniform civil code even if it is mentioned in the constitution. No. Anything which is mentioned in the directive principle of state policy is not enforceable against state. Means if state somehow fails to implement the directions given to it under directive principle of state policy, then nobody can go to court to get them implemented. ये है enforceability. However, see a contrast regarding fundamental rights. If fundamental rights are not enforced, कैसा रहा बताओ? Can you go to court? बिल्कुल instantly answer आना चाहिए yes. Whereas it is not the case in directive principle of state policy. अब इतना हो गया. Tell me who is more important, FR or DPSP? Which is more important? Fundamental. If I have to give one answer, then I will choose fundamental right. But then this will not be an answer if it comes in mains. Agar mains mein you get a chance to write, this will not be answer. Because DPSPs are not in no way less important. भाई ये जो fundamental right you have today, ये कहाँ से आए हैं? Whatever, आप ये देखो, you have fundamental rights, from where they have come? यहीं से आए हैं, DPSP से. Who gives the wisdom to state to make some rights as fundamental rights? कौन बनाता था स्टेट को? यही DPSP. DPSP had this provision that there should be, देखो DPSP had this provision that there should be a free and compulsory education. ये पहले DPSP था. Today it is fundamental right. ठीक है सर. Many rights are becoming rights because state is keeping in mind that there are few guidelines given in DPSP and we have to implement them. And they are so important that they should be made fundamental also. So there is no basic clash between DPSP and FR. Clash nahi hai uske andar, but then difference is there. In no case state can postpone fundamental rights. Though state can postpone DPSP, but not with the intention of postponing DPSP. The intention should always be to implement these principles on ground. State should always try to implement directive principles on ground. For example, if there is a directive principle that the slaughtering of cow and other milch animals should be prevented, then state should keep in mind while they make law, and if somehow they get a possibility by which the people who are engaged in slaughtering of cows and calves can be given an alternative vocation, then it can be banned also. State हमेशा सोचता रहता है, how can I implement DPSP? And the moment state gets these resources, they implement the DPSP. अभी क्या है? Right now, we don't have resources to bring every religion on board regarding uniform civil code. The day Muslims, Hindus, Christians, Sikh, they agree that we are ready to accept a common law regarding the personal law of marriage, divorce, adoption or inheritance of property. अगर सब मान जाते हैं, then that very same day, state will bring what? Uniform civil code. It means that it's not the intention of the state to delay DPSP. The state is not always having the resources to implement the DPSP on ground. हमेशा उसके हाथ में ये है ही नहीं. Right to work, to provide right to work is DPSP or not? But then state is not having actually this resources in its hand that it can provide work to each and every person in this country right now. अभी वो resources है नहीं. But tomorrow when economic base of India will become stronger, they will extend this. They will also convert this DPSP into FR. कल को उसको भी वो FR बना देंगे. Or even if it is not made an FR, it will made a legal right. Implementation of DPSPs, ये guide, भाई आप ये देखो. Father said you have to, father ने ये guidelines दी थी that on daily basis after class you have to study for 6 hours. 365 days a year you have to study for 6 hours after class. And you were following that also. 300 day, 300 दिन, it happened that you were not well, fever हो गया. Can you actually study for 6 hours now? No, do not even try that. समझ रहे हो sir? You want to follow those guidelines, but somehow, sometimes resources may not be with you to work on those guidelines. So you can to sometime defer, but the intention is not to defer. The intention is to get those resources so that you can implement these guidelines on ground. हाँ जी, अच्छा लिखो DPSP. शिकार, हाँ जी आप बताओ. From where we have got this concept of DPSP? Very good. Not from America. Is America having DPSP? No. USA के constitution में DPSP है ही नहीं. Write down. Directive principles of state policies are in the nature of directions to the state to be observed, means the directions to be observed to the state to be observed while forming the laws and policies most of them aim at establishing social and economic democracy as pledged in preamble. Very good. As pledged in the preamble. They carry the concept of welfare state as against police state and summarizes the ideals of people of India. They tend to establish a welfare state as against a laissez-faire or regulatory state. Laissez-faire or regulatory state. What is the meaning of a regulatory state? That is regulatory or laissez-faire? Laissez-faire. Very good. Laissez-faire state वो state होता है, whatever you are doing, the state is not concerned. मिनिमम पुलिसिंग. भाई आपको ऐसे समझाता हूं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, डोंट हैव यू नॉट सीन दीज काइंड ऑफ पेरेंट्स हु आर लेजिस्फेरिक? देखे ना आपने? दे टेल देयर चिल्ड्रन, यू गो आउटसाइड wherever you want to go. I don't have anything to do with that. जहां मर्जी जाओ. I am not bothered with what you are doing, where you are going, with whom you are going, till the time you come back in single piece. इसे कहते हैं लेजिस्फेरिक. घर सलामत आ जाओ तो ठीक है, whatever you're doing, I'm not concerned. लेजिस्फेरिक. On the other hand, regulatory, very tight. Regulatory state is actually a kind of state which is not giving you any service. It is only giving you two service. First is, it is giving you security, but then security is in good sense. It is actually not giving you proper security also. It is guarding the border. ये ensure तो ये this state, this kind of state will ensure that nobody attacks the country and wins the country. ये तो वो करेगा, but this state will not bring you what? Growth. This state is not bothered with what you are doing. ठीक है, they will just give you the basic facility. This state will provide, ये extreme है, दोनों extreme cases है. This state will provide you security, best, and it will collect taxes also. But none of these two conditions, they will ensure that you develop also. भाई जिंदा रहना ही थोड़ी ना एक चीज है. Just being alive is not the only aim of being human. You also need to grow socially, economically, politically, spiritually. And that can happen in a kind of state arrangement which is called as welfare state. Welfare state is one which will not only provide you protection, it will also provide you opportunities to grow and achieve the best potential which you have with you. Indian state is welfaric, but then you see, any state can only become welfaric if it has some guidelines or principles on which it will work. For example, Indian state has got this principle that the people who are already backward or who are already discriminated are not discriminated further. Indian state has got this guidelines with it that women should not be discriminated when they are paid in public service. बराबर salary होनी चाहिए. So they have formed some laws by which it is against the law to give less salary to women and more to men, at least in public service. By once you become IAS, will it matter whether you are a man or a woman? Salary तो सर बराबर मिलेगी ना. Salary which is coming from state will be equal or not? Because state has got some guidelines. एक DPSP ये भी है, minimize the inequality in income between men and women. And state will keep in mind, ये welfare की तो है. If I am a woman and I am getting less salary, will it not bring a kind of inferiority complex in me? And how will I develop my potential then? And when women of a country which is like 50% of the population, they are having this kind of inferiority complex regarding their abilities, will you expect a state to grow in that situation? No. Foundation ही weak रह जाएगी. So DPSP is ensuring that the foundation of the state is strengthened by giving the state some direction. कि भैया ऐसे rule करो, ऐसे rule करो. You make this policy, you make that policy. This is being told to state by DPSP. Okay, sir, यही आपने लिखा है. That state becomes welfare if it sticks to the principles given to it under part 4 of the Constitution, directive principle of state policy. The day DPSPs are ignored by state, this state and Pakistan and Iraq, there will be no difference. सब बराबर हो जाएगा. Write down. Though DPSPs are non-justiciable means you cannot go to court, non-justiciable in nature and cannot be enforced in a court of law. They are called as positive obligations of state. Sir, first difference between FRs and DPSP. ये तो सबको पता है. Enforceable in courts, non-enforceable in courts. Okay, write down. Fundamental rights are enforceable in the court of law. DPSPs are non-justiciable. These questions, I'll drop some words and this question will demand your knowledge about these words. Direct question आता है. They have set questions in this area and they keep repeating those questions only. Fundamental rights provide for political democracy. ये set question है. They will put you a question, which provision of the, देखो ऐसे question आएगा, which provision of the constitution is trying to provide political democracy in this country? What will you write, sir? Fundamental right. Do not write DPSP at that point of time. Though you can say that yes, even through DPSP we are getting political democracy. But then this is what constitutional experts have concluded, that fundamental rights provide political democracy and DPSP provide social and economic democracy. This is a set question in exam. Next. Fundamental rights, write this, political democracy, fundamental rights are providing for political democracy, DPSPs are providing for socio-economic democracy. Political democracy means because these rights are enforceable against whom? State. When you are in a way able to voice out yourself at the political arena, in the political arena, then this is political democracy or not? State is what? Politics only. When you can raise your voice against state, there is political democracy, right? And there is socio and economic democracy, because the aim of directive principles is to bring a civilized society where everybody's social and economic aspirations are respected. When you go through all these DPSPs, no, I mean today itself you try to go through Lakshmikant and you see various provisions which are mentioned in DPSP. You yourself will come to know that the aim, mostly the aim to bring social and economic justice in the society. For example, removing the disparity in pay of women and men. ये क्या है? Kind of social justice only, or also economic justice. Though social and economic cannot be separated from each other. When they say that there should be free legal aid to poor people, गरीब आदमी को सरकारी सहायता मिलनी चाहिए in getting justice. ये क्या है? Again, social and economic justice तो है ये. So if you go through all these provisions of DPSP, you will come to know uniform civil code क्या है? What is uniform civil code? Social justice. Economic तो नहीं है, but it is social justice or not? There is one DPSP which says state should bring some provisions which brings benefit to the backward communities. This is what? Social justice again. When this DPSP says that children should get opportunity to get studies up to the age of 6, this is what? Again social justice. Yes, sare, all these things, once you read these DPSPs, the list, I will give you some DPSPs which are mentioned here, but then I will not give you the complete list. If you want to go through that, please go through Lakshmikant aaj hi. I'll talk about the important ones. Okay, going through all the things will not have any meaning also, or don't we have time also. ठीक है सर, आप लिस्ट देख लेना, आपको कुछ समझ में आ जाएगा. Social and economic democracy is achieved through DPSP, and the aim of achieving political democracy is achieved through fundamental rights. Next, fundamental rights are negative obligations of state that is, they prevent the state from doing few things. ये नहीं करना है, डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं करना है. DPSPs are, directive principles are positive affirmations of state. Means you have to do this. Any other difference between the two? One is taken from? Very good, बहुत बढ़िया. हाँ, and one एक का नाम है फंडामेंटल राइट, दूसरे का नाम है डीपीएसपी. बहुत बढ़िया. Hit at the core. Very good. Fundamental rights are for individuals and directive principles are for society और group. इन्हीं के लिए तो बनाया गया ना. Write down. Fundamental rights promote the welfare of individual, hence personal or individualistic in nature. Directive principles promote the welfare of community, hence socialistic. Where do you expect the strict legal language to be present? क्या लगता है आपको? Fundamental rights. The language of fundamental right is strict in its कहां पे और लगेगा, कहां एंड लगेगा, that is also defined. Whereas these DPSPs are in nature of general directions. General. It is not given in very strict legal language. Write down. Fundamental rights given in strict legal language. Directive principles given in general terms. Any other difference? हाँ जी बताओ. Fundamental rights cannot be deleted. Delayed. Yes. Enforceable हो गया ना. मतलब it is enforceable. The day they are violated, you go to court. है ना? Very good. Any other difference also? आपने जो delayed वाली बात बोली ना सर, उसी बात को I give in different sense. See. Can I not say that fundamental rights are static and directive principles are dynamic? ये है कि नहीं है? भाई my aim, देखो, my aim, सर आपका aim है to grow. At what point will you stop? कभी नहीं सर. Grow मतलब there is no end to it. And daily basis you have to keep doing something by which you keep on growing spiritually, mentally, physically. उसका कोई अंत नहीं है. You have to keep working, and it is also possible, let me tell you, that you actually never achieve the state of perfect growth. You can reduce the difference between you and the level of perfect growth, but you may not be ever achieve that level perfection, because after all what you are talking about is itself very subjective. Growth है क्या, इसी की subjectivity बनी हुई है. What is a true civilized society cannot be defined in a way which applies universally across time and place. So DPSPs, they have some aims which will require you huge times and which will require you huge efforts also. And you keep giving those efforts, and it might actually, you never actually attain them 100%. But then if you are able to reduce the gap between the current reality and the principles of DPSP, then that is itself something a big achievement. Here you have to keep doing something. ये बोलते हैं, one of the DPSP says you have to prevent the degradation of environment. At what level you can say that now we have prevented the degradation of environment? कभी ऐसा बोल नहीं पाएंगे. It's a constant journey. Preventing the degradation of environment, for example, is one of the directive principles. At no point you can say now we have prevented the degradation of environment. It is a kind of a constant goal, and you have to keep taking steps to come closer to the perfect aim of DPSP. But at no point of time you can say that now we have achieved all the DPSP to 100% satisfaction. ऐसा हो पाना भी मुश्किल है. आप ये देखो, you wanted to achieve one DPSP, वो था ये, to provide children compulsory education and free education from the age group 6 to 14. This used to be one of the DPSPs earlier. Now the language has been changed. This was a DPSP that you provide free and elementary education, free and compulsory education to children from age 6 to 14. Now to realize this, you made it a fundamental right. Under Article 21A, आपने इसको fundamental right बना दिया. Now did you actually achieve this aim of free and compulsory education for all the children? No. अभी भी वो पूरा नहीं हुआ है. And you have to keep on taking steps to come closer to this goal of universal elementary education. But abhi bhi, right now also we are far from achieving this goal, and we need to keep doing something constantly to come closer to the values mentioned in DPSP. काम करते रहना पड़ेगा इसको अचीव करने के लिए. Whereas here fundamental rights have been mentioned. Our only aim is to prevent its violation. ये static है, ये fixed है. The only action state has to do is prevent its violation. Whereas it is dynamic. State has to keep moving and moving to come closer to the values of DPSP. Write down. Fundamental rights represent something static. Fundamental rights represent something static. Static, where basic rights have been conferred onto individuals, and the aim of state is to preserve those rights, Directive principles represent something dynamic, where state has to keep doing something to realize these principles. इनको सच बनाने के लिए, to realize these principles. Next and last, fundamental rights require fundamental rights do not require further legislation for their implementation. Now this is not the case always, but mostly fundamental rights are themselves law. है कि नहीं है भाई? Right to equality is itself a law. It will not require a law to realize it, whereas DPSP will require. है कि नहीं है? Write down. Fundamental rights are themselves law. Enforced automatically. Whereas DPSPs are not enforced automatically. Now see, now after 5 minutes I will enter into a debate. Debate kya? It was a series of action and counter action, where judiciary did something, then legislature did something, then again judiciary did something, and this way this went on for some time. Means it was a fight to establish who is more important, whether it is DPSP is more important or it is fundamental right which is more important. ठीक है ना? अब it will go into a sequence. So be alert through all these changes which took place. पहले कुछ होगा फिर उसका opposite होगा, and this way it will keep on going for some time till we settle the debate down with the law. So be alert for that time, and after that is done, I am sure there will be some kind of haziness कि यार पहले ये हुआ या पहले वो हुआ. Okay, for this you go and revise that thing today itself. This is something which I tell you on daily basis. It happens that when we come to class, he explains, then it is clear. But once we go home, again the things get intervened or intertwined. So to actually give it a proper shape, this understanding, revise it right now, today itself. कल के लिए मत छोड़ना इसको, right? Article 37. Anyone, what is it? हाँ जी बोलो. DPSPs are not enforceable. बस इतना ही है. Write down Article 37. नहीं मैंने ये नहीं बोला we derived I said many fundamental rights are there because DPSP is there. Not every fundamental right. See, you are seeing in that perspective, evolution. I am not talking in the terms of evolution. I am talking in the terms of enforcement. Enforcement wise, they are there. We just have to protect it. Whereas there to enforce them, we have to keep on bringing new and new laws or not. ये बोल रहा हूँ. Okay, write down. Article 37 states. Article 37 states. Please write, and when you write, read. Then I will explain. सिर्फ मैं समझाऊं फिर आप लिखो, it will not have any meaning in this because it is a kind of complicated debate now. तो जब मैं लिखाऊं, when I dictate, you write and write with understanding, and then I will discuss. Write down. Article 37 says. Article 37 says directive principles are not enforceable in a court of law. Article 37 says directive principles are not enforceable in the court of law. But, however, write down this also. However, nevertheless is better. Nevertheless, they are fundamental. वो enforceable तो नहीं है, मगर वो important है. Nevertheless, they are fundamental in the governance of the country. And it is the duty of the state to incorporate the directive principles in the policies formulated and laws made. See, right now, please give the heading importance of DPSP. Importance of DPSP. Question आ सकता है means में importance of DPSP. We have started importance of DPSP. Above Article 37, you give a heading importance of directive principles of state policy. Article 37 जहाँ आपने लिखा है ना, उसके ऊपर एक heading दे दो. Importance of DPSP. And the same thing will be an answer when the question comes, what is the relation between DPSP and FR? Give another heading, slash डाल के ऐसे दे दो. Importance or significance of DPSP, or the question can also come in the form that relationship between FRs and DPSP. The same argument which you are going to write now can be used to answer either of this क्वेश्चन. इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ डीपीएसपी भी आ सकता है, क्वेश्चन आ सकता है रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन एफआर एंड डीपीएसपी. सर, यू टेल मी, इफ देयर इज अ क्लैश बिटवीन एफआर फंडामेंटल राइट, मतलब देयर इज अ फंडामेंटल राइट, ठीक है, एंड देयर आर डीपीएसपीस. फॉर एग्जांपल डीपीएसपी नंबर ए, एग्जांपल डीपीएसपी नंबर ए. To implement, do not write just now, focus here, very important, critical. To implement this directive principle, I have to make a law. भाई लॉ के बिना कैसे इंप्लीमेंट करोगे इसको? इस गाइडलाइंस को इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए लॉ तो बनाना पड़ेगा ना. तो लॉ बन गया, लॉ मेड, बट दैट लॉ मेड इज एक्चुअली clashing, conflicting with some specific fundamental right. ऐसा हो भी सकता है. In that case, who should prevail? Fundamental right. मतलब if there is a fight between if there is a fight between the law made to implement directive principle and one of the fundamental rights, then in that case, as he said correctly, which is true also, fundamental rights should prevail. ये common sense observation भी है, and this was the judgment given by Supreme Court. Okay, but then what happened after some time? ये देखो, why this issue actually erupted, और ये आया ही क्यों? Article 39, what it says? 39B. C. Very good. This Article 39B and 39C both are different directive principles. ये दोनों अलग-अलग directive principles हैं. This principle 39B says whatever resources are there in society, it should be equally distributed among all. सबके पास उसका benefit जाना चाहिए. Whether it is water, it is land, it is money, it is production, whatever it is, minerals, सबके पास जाना चाहिए. 39 says nobody should hold something beyond its requirement or beyond a particular limit. For example, land. I cannot buy the land beyond a limit. ठीक है? ये दो थी. And if you see, both of these directive principles aim at bringing what? Land reforms were brought actually to implement them or not. For example, we abolished zamindari. We brought land ceiling. वो किस लिए था? Because zamindars were actually holding land beyond a particular capacity. उससे भी ज़्यादा वो अपने पास रख के बैठे थे. And so there was no land available for poor people. They were managing the fields for ages, and they still were not owner of the land. Why Britishers made you zamindar of the land? Did you actually take care of the land? No. He did not take care of the land. I am managing the land. I am putting my own resources in growing the crops, and he feels that he is the owner. ये गलत है कि नहीं है? Somebody who is managing something is the owner because he got the title only from Britishers. He did not actually buy the land. और वो जमींदारी चली आ रही है. So government abolished the जमींदारी system. जमींदार खत्म. Nobody is जमींदार. Nobody is इनामदार. ये सब चीज खत्म. The purpose of making or abolishing zamindari was what? ये. When zamindari was abolished, the purpose was to achieve Article 39B and C, ताकि land concentration ना हो. Land can be distributed among all. ये था zamindari abolition. Second action, he was having the bank. He was not giving loan to poor people. He was giving loan to only his friends. तो what I did, state ने क्या किया? State took away his banks. इनके banks लेके मैंने nationalize कर दिया. Now I have taken over his bank and I will manage it so that even poor people can get loan at cheaper prices. What is this? Nationalization of banks. तीसरी चीज, प्रिवी पर्सेस एबॉलिशन. ये राजा जी थे. ये मतलब वो कोई भी हो सकता है. राजा जी, he was getting a huge handsome amount of pension. By state took land from them And state told them, don't worry Rajaji, you will still be Rajaji without land or without your kingdom, because we will give you such a good amount of money that you will be able to manage this pomp and show after independence also. 1,00,000 रुपए महीना अगर आपको मिले pension during 1950, is it not something amazing? And who is paying the price for that? भाई राजा जी की शान और शौकत के लिए कीमत कौन भर रहा है? गरीब आदमी. Because state is not bringing on its own. The state is bringing this money from tax only. And tax is being paid by everybody, even poor people. So why should poor people pay for the burden of their pomp and show? वो खत्म कर दिया हमने. By a regulation called as privy purses abolition. वो भी बंद. Now don't you see that these 3 laws were made to implement DPSP? ये तीनों लॉ का पर्पस क्या था? To implement these 2 DPSP. But what happened? These 3 laws, did not they violate the rights of zamindars? Did not they violate the right of former Rajaji? Did not they violate the rights of bank holders? उनके rights गए. कौन कौन से rights गए? First is Article 14. Because if I am zamindar and I am being discriminated against by the state मेरे खिलाफ ही तो एक्शन ले रहा है जमींदारी abolish करके, then this is violation of Article 14. Also there is violation of Article 19(1) F था right to property. It was a right to property earlier, now it has been deleted. अब ये fundamental right है ही नहीं, but then it was there. Article 19(1) G, right to vocation. By running the bank was my vocation. When state has taken the bank from me, state has taken my job or not? Zamindari was my vocation. State has ended it. Where is my vocation? So it was violation of my right. एक right और जा रहा था. Article 31. Article 31 used to be right to property. This was also right to property. Article 19(1)(f) was also right to property. So to implement these 2 DPSPs, state made these laws, and these laws violated these fundamental rights. अब ये debate शुरू हो गया that what to do? What to do? क्या करें? Should we keep these DPSPs or should we keep these fundamental rights? एक को तो जाना पड़ेगा. Either the fundamental rights can remain, these fundamental rights can remain, or these laws can remain. कौन रहना चाहिए? Which should prevail? सर आप बताओ. Why DPSP? They are national interest na. See, you are just beginners and you have this kind of wisdom that this should prevail, because these 3 laws were made to bring benefit to larger section of society. Agar if I am making a law which benefits 100 people and it offends 5 people, then that law is valid or not? 100 लोगों को बेनिफिट देने के लिए अगर 5 को नुकसान भी हो तो इट इज ट्रू. यूटिलिटेरियन अप्रोच. Maximum happiness for maximum people, even if some people feel aggrieved. But then in this case, abhi I'll tell you which cases. Supreme Court initially said no. ये कानून गलत है because they are violating this right. पहले तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ऐसे बोल दिया. Then पार्लियामेंट बेइज्जती किसकी हुई? Do not have this perception that parliament is doing something wrong. In this case, parliament was doing something for the sake of people. ठीक है? It is doing always only. यहाँ खास कर था. They were doing something in the interest of people. Supreme Court said no, these laws are violating fundamental rights, so they are invalid. कर दिया invalid उसको. But parliament कहाँ चुप रहने वाली है? Parliament will act again. How parliament acted? Very good. Parliament ने constitution ही amend कर दिया. And they brought a provision in the constitution. (31)(c) that from now on, if parliament, देखो ध्यान से सुनो, do not bother about article भूल जाओ, just focus on this debate. Parliament made an amendment in the constitution and they wrote now explicitly, उन्होंने लिख दिया ये साफ साफ, that in future if we make a law and those laws violate these articles or fundamental rights, and that law is made to implement these 2 directive principles, तो वो law सही होगा. Parliament made a law that in future or even now, if we make some law to implement these two directive principles which aimed at land reform, and while doing that law formation, fundamental rights article 14, 19 and 31 are violated, then also directive principles will prevail. ये उन्होंने लिख दिया साफ साफ. ठीक है? Understanding or not? But then here starts what you call as greed. लालच यहीं से शुरू होता है. You got one benefit. एक बार तो बाजी मार ली. Now this is called as foot in door. After some time, Parliament again made a law by which they said, in future, if we make any law to implement not only these two directive principles, but any directive principles, and in that process they violate any fundamental right, then that law will be upheld. अभी ज़्यादा नहीं हो गया? भाई, purpose of these two directive principles was land reform. But now they want to say that not only these two directive principles, tomorrow if we make any law, that will be valid, even if they violate the fundamental right. अबे गलत है कि नहीं है? This was the case here, and not only this, in this thing, Parliament said this also, that we are taking this power of judicial review from the court in this area. अब ये भी तो गलत है कि नहीं है? कि भाई, in future, if we make any law to give effect to any directive principles, and in that exercise the violation of fundamental rights take place, then this law will be upheld, and also judiciary will not be in a position to question us then. ये गलत है ना? एक तरफ तो you have given more weightage to what? DPSP over fundamental rights. भाई पहले तो बात ये थी that fundamental rights, DPSPs and fundamental right, if you make a comparison, fundamental rights are always up. First thing, it's established fact. But through this act, first of all, you have given more weightage to two directive principles over three fundamental rights. ठीक है, चलो वो भी ठीक था, because that's what done for the whole society. After that, you want to give full weightage to DPSPs over fundamental rights. आप कह रहे हो भाई किसी भी DPSP को हम implement करेंगे, do not question us even if it violates fundamental right. अभी गलत है कि नहीं है? Tomorrow Parliament can make any law whose intentions might not be to bring benefit for the whole society, but to suppress fundamental rights. तो इसलिए अब this time judiciary in Minerva Mill case, it put it foot down. उन्होंने बोला बस, this is not right, because not only you have given more weightage to DPSPs over fundamental right, you have also taken away our right of judicial review, which is very good, which is part of basic structure of the constitution. You cannot do so. तो पार्लियामेंट बोला अच्छा अच्छा चलो ठीक है, ये तो रहने दो. Judiciary said okay चलो ठीक है. Judiciary said in future ठीक है, we agree. In future, if you will make a law to give effect to two directive principles, 39B and 39C, and in that case they violate three fundamental rights, 14, 19 or 31, अब तो ये है ही नहीं, then we will not question the law. ये अब established line है. Understood? कोई confusion? Now I will tell you what were the sequence of the facts through various cases. अब आप लिखो और आप देखो कैसे कैसे it proceeded further. Supreme Court in Champakam Durai Rajam. Do not write Champak. Champakam जरूर लिखना. Champakam Durai Rajam. Case 1951 said that. Now this debate. अभी किस लिए debate है? This debate is to see which is important. ये debate इसलिए है कि important कौन है? Directive principles or fundamental right? Okay, write down. Supreme Court said that directive principles, you write DP, directive principles cannot override fundamental rights. Supreme Court in Champakam Durai Rajan case said that directive principles cannot override fundamental rights. They have to confirm. Confirm means in line. They have to confirm and run subsidiary कैसे भी लिख सकते हो to fundamental rights. DPSP are subsidiary to fundamental rights. यही लिखा है आपने. They will have to confirm and run subsidiary to fundamental rights. In case of a conflict between fundamental rights and DPs, अगर दोनों में clash हो गया, means one has to go and one has to remain. Who will go, sir? DPSP. Very good. In case of any conflict between FRs and DPSPs, FRs will prevail. Now, what do you understand with this judgment? That outrightly we rejected the importance of DPSP or not? In a way. सीधा बोल दिया by fundamental right. That's all. There is no scope of debate. If there is a clash between DPSP and FR हमेशा prevail करेंगे. There cannot be a law to give effect to directive principle which violate fundamental right. यही तो लिखा है अभी आपने. अब हुआ ये, later on Supreme Court realized, yeah, the intention of this action was right because they were aimed at bringing land reform, which is much needed in India also. So they modified the language. अब उन्होंने अपनी लैंग्वेज को टोन डाउन किया. दे टोन डाउन देयर लैंग्वेज इन डिफरेंट केस. राइट डाउन. हाउएवर realizing the importance of implementing directive principles, in establishment of a welfareic state, Supreme Court in Kerala Education Bill case 1957 adopted the theory of harmonic state. Harmonic state and said that sir, you have also seen this harmonic state happening in your home. देखा है ना आपने क्या होता है? देखो, he is saying that in childhood you used to say this, I'll watch TV, today is Sunday, I will not study. आप ये बोलते थे ना पहले. Earlier programs were also good quality. Father said no study. He said no TV. Father said study. झगड़ा हो रहा तगड़ा. Then mother came. Okay, do one thing my son. You watch TV for 5 hours and after that you study for 1 hour. दोनों का काम हो गया. Both happy. He also happy and father also happy. इसे कहते हैं harmonization. Mother used to do this job or not? Son and father not agreeing on something. Then mother will bring a kind of harmony. दोनों की बात मान जाएंगे. This is what the court said. If there is a clash between fundamental rights and DPSP, then judgment should be given in such a way that it should be able to accommodate both. Very strange duty given to Supreme Court. अभी कितना मुश्किल काम है कि नहीं है sir? But then this is the principle which is called as the principle of harmonic state. Harmonic state means if there is a disagreement between two principles, if there is a disagreement between two principles and you have to choose one and reject other, try to find a way by which you are able to accommodate both. Ab you see this thing, there is a clash between directive principles and fundamental rights or not? Did the court not find a harmonic state principle here? उन्होंने भी तो फाइंड किया, उन्होंने बोला ठीक है, let's do one thing, let's not give overall weightage to DPSP or FR. Let's say that if the case is regarding 39 and B and C, then they will prevail, but other DPSP they cannot prevail over fundamental right. मगर अगर ये दो हैं तो ठीक है. If these two directive principles they violate these three fundamental rights, then it is okay, they should prevail. But if there is any other directive principle that violate this fundamental right, तब ये नहीं चलेगा. Don't you feel that it is a kind of harmonic state? You gave importance to both with a kind of mutual compromise. लिखो, adopted the theory of harmonic state and held that means said that directive principles cannot override fundamental rights. Directive principles cannot override fundamental rights. Nevertheless, in determining the scope and ambit of fundamental rights, the courts cannot ignore the directive principles completely. Courts cannot ignore the directive principles completely and try to give effect. And try to give effect means try to accommodate, try to give effect to both. Try to give effect to both DPs and FRs as much as possible. There is no inherent, court नहीं बोला, the court said there is no inherent, मतलब basically they are not opposite to each other. Court said there is no inherent conflict between FRs and DPSPs. And it is the responsibility of the courts to interpret the Constitution in such a way so as to implement the DPs and also ensure non-violation of fundamental rights. मतलब in Hindi it is called as मुहावरा. बहुत बढ़िया. अरे हिंदी का पेपर है कि नहीं है सर, बताओ. सांप भी मर जाए और लाठी भी ना टूटे. This is it. DPs are also relevant. DPs are also relevant to define. DPs, directive principles, are also relevant to define what are the reasonable restrictions on fundamental rights. If there are two interpretations possible, now start reading from here itself. If there are two interpretations possible to a law giving effect to एक ऐसा कानून है गिविंग इफेक्ट टू व्हाट? डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स. If there are two interpretation possible to a law giving effect to DPs, मतलब एक ऐसा कानून जो DPSP को इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए बनाया गया है, giving effect to DPSPs, and first interpretation leads to harmonization. Harmonization means compromise. First interpretation leads to harmonization or compromise between DPs and FRs. And second one means second interpretation leads to conflict. Then the court shall take up the first interpretation. Court in this case said, I am court. Stop writing, focus here. I am court, for example. Court said in this case, Kerala bill case, court ने क्या बोला? Court said, suppose it happens, be very attentive, suppose it happens that law has been made to implement DPSP and this law is conflicting with fundamental rights. अगर ऐसा हो गया, then court should see through what angles we can see this conflict. If there are two angles, one way I can see or I can found a way by which I can accommodate both, and other way I have to choose one. So I should give the judgment in a way which accommodates both fundamental rights and DPSP. I should find a way by which I can realize both DPSPs as well as fundamental rights. But it can also happen that that I do not come to a conclusion by which I can get a compromise between the two. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता. And as a judge, I have to choose one, fundamental right or DPSP. अगर ऐसी situation आ गई that I find that there is only one way of giving judgment, either I choose this DPSP को या तो मैं choose करूं or I give preference to fundamental right, then what should I do? Fundamental right. I should give preference to fundamental right. Though my effort should be to accommodate both. मगर अगर ऐसा हो ही नहीं पा रहा है, then I have to choose fundamental rights over them. अब ऐसा हो गया, write down. However, if only one interpretation is possible, which leads to conflict between them, then the courts have no choice. Then the courts have no choice but to implement FRs over DPs. This judgment was given when? 1957. केरला केस में दी थी जजमेंट इन्होंने. Whereas bank nationalization and privy purses abolition was done when? 69 and 71. Okay, nationalization took place in two stages. So, using this judgment which was given in 57, we actually concluded that in 1969 and 71 when nationalization was done, this nationalization is wrong. Why? Because it is violating fundamental. अभी आपने यही लिखा है ना, that somehow if the court feels that we have to sacrifice one thing, DPSP or FR, then you sacrifice DPSP. जो कानून DPSP को implement करने के लिए बना था उसको हटा दो अगर वो violate कर रहा है किसको? Fundamental right को. Using this line of thought, Supreme Court said that these laws made to implement Article 39B and C are wrong. They are unconstitutional because they are violating these fundamental rights. एक को चूज करना था. Write down. On the basis of this interpretation, on the basis of this interpretation, on the basis of this interpretation, Supreme Court declared Bank Nationalization Act 1971 and privy purses. Is it visible from that side? Privy purses? Spelling. And Privy Purses Abolition Act 1971, जो उनको पेंशन आ रही थी ना वो खत्म कर दी राजाओं को. Privy Purses Abolition Act 1970. Indira Gandhi started na Garibi Hatao program. How will you hatao Garibi unless these people are getting so much of big money? $79, 69 वाले कोई फर्दर लेके गए थे हम 79 में, ठीक है. 71 ही तो बोला है मैंने. 71 and Privy Purses Abolition Act 1971, which were enacted to give effect to, directive principles. Which directive principles, sir? 39B and 39C. To be unconstitutional and void on the grounds that they violated 3 FRs, Article 14, 1931. अभी don't you see, देखो अभी I'm just repeating what I said earlier. Parliament made a law, Supreme Court nullified it because they were violating fundamental right. अब Parliament क्या चुप बैठेगी? What will Parliament do? Amendment. Parliament brought amendment in the Constitution and Parliament passed this 25th Amendment Act 1971. उन्होंने एक amendment कर दिया Constitution में, and they wrote now in the Constitution and they inserted one article also in the Constitution, that was Article 31C. ये article add कर दिया और उसमें लिख दिया. Earlier it was not written ना. Now it is written in the Constitution explicitly. देखो क्या लिखा, write down. But Parliament felt that the judgment came in a way of enacting a social legislation. A social legislation means law. Enacting a social legislation in the larger interest of society. Therefore, it enacted, it means Parliament. Therefore, it enacted 25th Amendment Act. (1971), which introduced Article 31C, which reads, what was Article 31C? पार्लियामेंट ने एक लॉ बना दिया और उन्होंने क्या लिखा, सी दिस आई एक्सप्लेन यू अर्लियर ऑल्सो बट आई एम नाउ टॉकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्पेसिफिक्स. Article 31C got inserted. Article 31C said that Parliament, if it makes a law to give effect to two DPs, which DPs? 39B or 39C, land reforms. Okay, summary bata raha hu, land reform. If Parliament makes a law to give effect to two DPs, 39B and 39C, and these laws violate three fundamental rights, 14, 19 and 31, then in that case, these laws will not be unconstitutional. ये लिख दिया किसने? पार्लियामेंट ने. Where? In Constitution. Means now it has become a law, and this was a way to nullify the judgment of court. Though Supreme Court again could have said, no, this is wrong. What you did, when you inserted Article 31C, this is wrong. Remove it. Then Parliament would have been forced to remove it. ठीक है ना? But thankfully Supreme Court did not say this. Write down. It inserted Article 31C, which reads that if the state, Article 31C, which reads that if the state enacts a law, state कोई कानून बनाता है, if the state enacts a law to give effect to two DPs, under Article 39B and C, under Article 39B and 39C, and in that process the law violates fundamental rights under Article 14, 19 and 31 or 31, sorry, then it cannot be held unconstitutional merely on this ground. Now see this. Till now, हाँ जी आप बताओ, till now, who is winning? Parliament or judiciary? Parliament. Because, देखो, let me summarize. Parliament made a law to give effect to 39B and C. Land reform लेके आए. They abolished zamindari. Bank nationalization was done. Privy purses were abolished. Pension खत्म कर दी उनको. This law violated fundamental right. Supreme Court said what? This is wrong. Because this is here DPSP is violating FR, which is not possible. So let's cancel the law which were formed to implement the DPs. ये बात बोली Supreme Court ने. To cut this judgment, Parliament did what? Parliament amended the Constitution. 25th Amendment Act लेके आ गया, and they inserted Article 31C. What did 31C say? That tomorrow, if we make a law to give effect to two DPs, 39B and C, and these law violate three fundamental rights, 14, 19, 31, 14, 19, 31, then that law will not be called unconstitutional. What do you expect when Parliament has made amendment in the Constitution to nullify the judgment of Supreme Court? Will not somebody question the amendment itself? आपने amendment की कैसे? Somebody filed a petition, and in Keshwanand Bharati case 1973, this amendment, 25th Amendment Act was challenged. यही गलत था, बोल दिया किसी ने. But then here now judiciary is now evolving. Now judiciary is leaving its mechanical way of seeing the things. It is becoming more organic. Ab judiciary ne in Keshwanand Bharati case said that 25th Amendment Act 1971 was right or wrong? Right. ये सही है. In Keshwanand Bharati case, Supreme Court said that the law made by Parliament of inserting Article 31C, whereby it wanted to give edge to do two DPSPs over three FRs, is okay. उनको agree कर दिया. What happened to Parliament? वो खुश हो गए, हौसला बढ़ गया. They got excited, inspired, and they took another step. इसे कहते हैं foot in door. Foot in door, you understand or not? You just place your foot in the door. You salesmen do this. Sometimes they come to your house. Sir, just 5 minutes. then they will eat away your 15 minutes. Sir, just buy this, you buy one thing. Sir, इसको भी ले लो, ये भी बहुत बढ़िया चीज है. Once you start giving them concession, then they ask keeping for concessions. और थोड़ी देर बाद दरवाजा खोल के अंदर ही बैठ जाते हैं. This is called foot in door, and this happened here in this case. देखो, when in Keshwanand Bharati case, judiciary upheld the action of parliament. Parliament took another action. Parliament ने अब क्या किया? Parliament made another law through 42nd Amendment Act 1976. और अब की बार पार्लियामेंट ने कहा that in future if we make a law to give effect to not only these two directive principles but any directive principles, and that law violates these three fundamental rights, then that law will not be unconstitutional. And also judiciary cannot question our action. देखा अपनी पावर तो बढ़ाई ली, जुडिशरी को भी रोक दिया. Now here judiciary got alarmed. उनको लगा यार I gave them concession and now they are sitting on our, है कि नहीं है? Now judiciary put down their foot in Minerva Mill case 1980 और उन्होंने बोला that the way you are moving is wrong. First of all, you cannot take away our judicial review power. पहली तो चीज यही गलत थी. किसमें? 42nd Amendment Act. Secondly, when you are giving overwhelming weightage to DPSPs over fundamental right, this is also wrong. Because actually fundamental rights should prevail over DPSPs. But then we gave some weightage to these two articles because the purpose was the larger interest of society. तुम तो सबको ही ऊपर बिठाना चाहते हो. This is wrong. Okay, write down. In Keshwanand Bharati case, in continuation only, in Keshwanand Bharati case, 1973, Supreme Court upheld the validity of 25th Amendment Act. And thus also held Bank Nationalization Act and Privy Purses Abolition Act to be valid. Paragraph change. Now Parliament enacted, please keep reading what you're writing. It's a very long and complicated debate. Abhi clear kar lo. Now Parliament enacted, and you know why I made you write all these things? Isko likhna zaruri bhi tha. Because in UPSC they will not ask you only these mechanical things. What is Article 31C? Though they may ask you that also. What is Article 31C? What was the judgment of Keshwanand Bharati case? In which case basic structure concept? They may ask you this also. But sometimes they ask you a larger thing which you can understand only when you go through all these discussions. For example, they might put you this question, that which is more important, DPSP or FR? Agar ye question mains mein aa gaya, could you have given the answer without this whole debate? No. पूरा लिखना पड़ेगा ना आपको. That DPSP though is declared subsidiary to FR, however, the two DPSPs, 39B and C, can prevail over three fundamental rights. And you also have to give these judgments. सिर्फ ये दो लाइन में लिख के you don't have to end now. You have to give the judgment and the way the things change and twisted. Therefore, you wrote all these things, and I do not know, you do not know how they might pick a statement out of this whole debate and make it a question. So UPSC is very good at making questions, very, very good. They find questions in an area where you cannot see a question. And for that, you need to have a thorough understanding of these things. Parliament enacted 42nd Amendment Act 1976, which among other things amended. Parliament enacted 42nd Amendment Act 1976, which among other things amended Article 31C, which read which read, अब उसकी लाइन ही चेंज कर दी, which read, if a state enacts a law, means this is a new article 31C. If state enacts a law, if state enacts a law to give effect to all or any of the DPs, all or any of the DPs, and in the process violates Article 14, 19 or 31, then that law shall not be unconstitutional and void merely on this ground. And such a law cannot be questioned in the court of law. In the court of law. Later through, paragraph change and then write, later through which amendment act they removed the right to property? Very good. Later through 44th Amendment Act, Article 31 and 19F, 191F, sorry. Article 31 and 19 Clause 1 Subclause F were removed from the list of fundamental rights. Paragraph change. Now here is coming the final conclusion of this case in Minerva Mill case. Now Supreme Court gave a judgment and then this is the end of it. Write down. Supreme Court in Minerva Mill case Minerva Mill case 1980. Supreme Court in Minerva Mill case 1980 held means said that the changes introduced by 42nd Amendment Act in Article 31C are unconstitutional. Because it disturbed the balance. Because it disturbed the balance between what and what? बहुत बढ़िया. Between part 3 and part 4. It disturbed the balance between part 3 and part 4 of the Constitution, which is a basic structure of Constitution. Remember, this balance between DPSPs and FR is a basic structure, ठीक है? Which disturbed the balance between part 3 and part 4, which itself is a basic structure of the Constitution, and also took away what? Very good. And also took away the power of judicial review of courts, which was also part of basic structure. Now this is the present condition. Ab condition ye hai after the judgment. Write down conclusion. The present position is that a law, अब ये फाइनल कंक्लूजन ये है, a law made to implement the 2 DPs, the 2 DPs, 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 2 D under Article 39B and 39C can prevail over how many fundamental rights? 2 ही तो रहे ना सर, वो तो हट ही चुका है. Over Article 14 and 19, over 2 fundamental rights can prevail over 2 fundamental rights under Article 14 and 19. ठीक है? Understood? Any confusion till now? And please read it also. I know you must be tired by now, but then I want to finish DPSPs. Importance of DPSPs. हाँ जी. Means they reverted back to the original 31C. They said you expanded the scope of 31C. This is wrong. So you revert back to the original 31C, which said that these two DPSPs can prevail over the fundamental right. Understood or not? 31C originally said what? Originally with 25th Amendment Act 1971, Parliament said that if we tomorrow make a law to give effect to these DPSPs and they violate these fundamental rights, that is okay. ठीक है ना? Then they added this language to 31C. कि भाई not only these two, any fundamental right. When in Minerva Mill case judgment came, Parliament was forced to revert back to the original 31C, which read originally also and now also that Parliament can give effect to these two DPSPs, and even if they violate these two FRs, it is okay. ठीक है ना? Importance of DPSPs. Directive principles are not given legal enforceability. This is only some gyan which is to be given to be written in mains. Otherwise you know each and everything. But you have to write them so that your answer becomes better than a layman answer. Directive principles have not been given. Directive principles have not been given legal enforceability. Legal enforceability. क्यों उसको नहीं दी है? This is the reason. Sir, why we have not given legal enforceability to DPs? Yes, we do not know when we are going to have the resources by which we can provide elementary education to each and every child of this country. We do not know at what time we will be able to provide a clean environment to everybody. We do not know when we will have these resources to provide work to each and every person in this country. है कि नहीं? So we have not given DP. We do not know when Muslims, Hindu, Christians, they will all agree regarding a common personal law. So we have not set a time frame, but effort are with us. We are putting efforts to realize DPSP through various laws. And one example to prove that actually DPSPs have been realized. आप बताओ. Right to education. It was a DPSP. We made it a fundamental right. Another example. Manrega, village panchayat, by PRI 73rd Amendment Act, it gave constitutional status to panchayats or not? This is only a realization of DPSP. It was DPSP. Another example, free legal aid to economically weaker section. There was a directive principle that people who are economically weaker, they should be given free legal aid. So government brought this thing. Now as per the law, if you are economically weaker, you can ask for a lawyer from state, and your fees for the litigation can also be waived off. ये सब क्या है? This is nothing but implementation of this one. Right now, directive principles have not been given legal enforceability not because they are inferior. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो बेकार है इसलिए हमने enforce नहीं किया उनको. Not given legal enforceability not because they are inferior to any other part of the constitution. But because their implementation needs time and resources for which a time frame cannot be set. Dr. Ambedkar said that DPSPs may not be enforceable in the court of law but are enforceable in the court of public. Very good. Public or people. What is the meaning? That fundamental DPSPs are enforceable in the court of people, if not in the court of law. बताओ सर, इसका मतलब क्या है? Yes. बताओ सर, मीनिंग क्या है इसका? Sir, what is the meaning that DPSPs are not enforceable in the court of law, but they are enforceable in the court of people? इसका मतलब क्या है? Yes. अरे, court cannot punish the government if DPSPs are not enforced. ठीक है. But people can punish government if DPSPs are not enforced. For example, again UCC. Some sections are demanding uniform civil code. If government is not doing that and it is failing on that provision, in spite of other communities also agreeing to that, then next election they will punish this. For example, let's say, take this example only. For example, it is said that Muslim women, they require uniform civil code more than any other person. Now, if tomorrow government, even if the Muslim leaders, they agree, yes, we can have uniform civil code, and the government fails to do that, who will be against them? The whole Muslim community as well as Muslim women, including Hindu community and Hindu women, because government is ignoring a cause which is mentioned in DPs. So this is it. If government is not implementing directive principles well, people will punish them through elections. Right now. Any responsible government shall have to implement DPs. DPs do not enjoy legal sanctions. DPs do not enjoy legal sanctions. But enjoy which sanction? Political sanction. Opposition wale bhi to question karenge. Opposition people will also ask, why are you not implementing this particular directive principles? People will also ask, and in the next political contest, elections, they will not vote them. Legal sanctions but enjoy political sanctions. They means the directive principles. They act as a lighthouse. Don't they? But they are lighthouse only. They guide the government or not? I told you when I started the class. ये राह पर रखते हैं आपको. Okay. They act as a lighthouse and constantly remind the government of their responsibility of taking the country towards welfareism. Implementation of directive principles means, have we implemented them or not? Just 2-3 lines, not much. Implementation of directive principles or manifestation of directive principles. Question can come in any form. Implementation of directive principles or manifestation of directive principles means how far we have been successful in implementing them. Sir, aap batao, in which area we have actually succeeded in properly implementing or to large extent implementing the DPs? Village Panchayat, very good. In what areas we have been very successful in implementing the DPs on ground? एक तो उन्होंने बोला पंचायत. What is next? वो तो हो गया ना, एजुकेशन, राइट टू एजुकेशन. You are not saying something which I discussed for continuously half an hour. अरे ये बोलो लैंड रिफॉर्म्स. बहुत बढ़िया. लैंड रिफॉर्म्स 39B and 39C. What was the purpose? Land reform only. And we have been quite successful in bringing land reforms in this country, if not very successful. You know this or not? Do not see what has not been done. See what has been done. Even now there are cases in Maharashtra, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh also, where land reform has not taken place even in West Bengal. Still we have been continuing with the practice which prevailed before independence regarding this land distribution and land management. Even now the people who are tilling the land, they are working like slaves. They are not owner of the land, and the zamindars have found way to maintain their control over the land. But then this is only a fraction. Largely we have been able to bring land reforms. Land ceiling भी हमने लगाई है. Nobody can buy land more than that. ये क्या है? Land reform ही तो है. And we were asked, state was asked to bring land reform through 39B and C. This is the best area of implementation of directive principles. Write down. India is an agrarian country. India being an agrarian country, the greatest progress in carrying out DPs have been regarding implementation of 39B and C. Second, Article 40. What was this DP? Panchayat, very good. Article 40, organizing village panchayats. We have been successful, very successful in this area. Which is Article 41. Free legal aid is 39C. Have we provided free legal aid to poor people? Yes. Yes, very good. So, in this area also we have been successful. इसको भी लिख लो 39C. Article 39C, free legal aid to poor people. Free legal aid to economically backward classes. Free legal aid to economically backward classes. We have provided that by law. ये भी realize किया है हमने. Article 41 relates to right to work. You should be provided with the opportunity to work. तो उसके लिए हमने क्या किया है? नरेगा. हाँ, मनरेगा बोलते हैं उसको. Article 41. We have realized that also. Right or wrong? Next. और कौन सा सर? Free and compulsory education 45 to children below the age of 40. Below the age of 14. 14. We have provided that also. But here you write one thing. Sir, we have actually provided them free and compulsory education. Not to the level expected. By just making a law is not enough. And forcibility is also important or not. And for that, you see, even now we have so many lacunas. Villages, you go to Rajasthan and other parts of northern states particularly. You say that we are providing opportunity to study. बहुत बढ़िया है. You have opened schools. Problem is that in many schools, teachers are not there. In you go to particular Rajasthan, you go to school, you see toilets are not functional, particularly for women. So how will they go to school? It is said in one of the surveys that in many parts of northern India, particularly Rajasthan, children do not go to school because toilets are non-functional. We cannot discount their importance. Drinking water is not available. So just making it a fundamental right is not enough. We have to prepare an enabling environment also. So we have converted that into FR, but not converted it into a reality. This way we have to give the argument. Okay. Just last topic. Directives and other parts of the constitution. दो चार आर्टिकल लिखवाने और कुछ नहीं. Directives in other parts of the constitution means these are the directions to the state, but they are not in part 4. Part 4 के बाहर है. Article 350A. No problem, dog fight going on, you write down. 350A. Directs the states. What is this direction? 350A? Very good, sir. Vernacular language, mother tongue में instructions. Okay. State should provide opportunity to everyone, every children to get a instruction or education in mother tongue, vernacular language. Write down. 350A directs the states and local authorities. Directs the states and the local authorities to provide facility for instruction in mother tongue at primary stage to the children of linguistic minorities. (351) Hindi, very good. The spread of Hindi, very good. Write down. Directs the government. 351 directs the government to promote the spread of Hindi and last one, Article 355 directs the state that the claims of SCs and STs, shall be considered along with maintenance of efficiency of administration, efficiency. See, on Monday and Tuesday, there will be a test on polity. You can come at 1 o'clock and you can take the test. Okay? And do come prepared, because this is only half job will be done after you take the test. Okay, this is done. Thank you very much. Monday, new topic I'll start. Till now, whatever we have covered. Okay, thank you.